You're listening to the Snob OS podcast, the podcast for Apple snobs. Hey, this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And welcome to the Snob OS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Snob OS show. We want to definitely take a quick second to thank you for your continued support of listening and or watching and or supporting our show. A couple of things you can do is you can listen and or watch. Also, please take a time out to give us a 5-star review and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. We're on all of the things. Also, if you want to become a Patreon supporter, you can head on over to patreon.com/snoboscast to get all the details to find out how you can watch a show live and get exclusive content like our Snobbish show, which we just finished recording. And that way you can get in on some extra content. So definitely head on over to patreon.com/snoboscast to get those details and sign up. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this week's show. We're going to kick it off with the lowdown where we talk all things Apple. Well, we are heading into WWDC on Monday, kicking it off with the keynote. There's been lots of rumors. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago about what we thought we were going to see. Now that we've had a little bit of time for it to kind of parlay after it was announced, have any of your original expectations changed? Has anything changed for you? Or are you now more excited to see something that you weren't, or hoping to see something? Anything changed from what we originally thought was going to come out of WWDC?
Not really. I've seen some of the rumors about CarPlay getting better. I'd be interested to find out, what they have in store for that. Definitely interested in HomeKit. I think they're going to do some new integrations, new features, things of that nature with the Home app, and then want to see what Apple says about this Apple Intelligence. Are they going to pretend like it didn't exist and just move on and talk about something else, like this rumored iPhone Air? Is that going to be their buffer or their distraction from Apple Intelligence? Or is Apple going to address it? And if they do address it, are they going to be like, hey, we got all these cool things now? Or are they going to say, B, we're still working on it. Have your faith in us. We're trying to figure out how to do it right. That's going to take some time. Are they going to be honest and say it's going to take some time because we want to do it right? Or are they going to try to distract us? Number two. Or three, are they going to lie to us and say Apple Intelligence is the greatest thing on earth, which we know it needs some work done. I ain't saying it's bad. It ain't bad, but comparative to what we think AI is supposed to do now, Apple is behind. Now, I don't agree with what we think AI needs to be doing now, but that's what everybody's saying. So it's like you either get with it or you don't, right?
Right. Get on board or be left behind. I don't think anything has really changed for me as far as expectations as well. I'm definitely interested in the distraction pieces, like you mentioned, because I've seen some rumors around, we aren't going to hear that much about Apple Intelligence, but we may get something called HomePad, which is basically going to be kind of their version of home management. Through some of the images that I saw, it looked kind of like a iPad on top of
a HomePod.
A HomePod.
Yeah.
So
Google Nest has it. Google Nest has this little screen / speaker thing that I would assume is pretty popular. So I'm assuming Apple's like, we'll just do that.
Yeah. And since, WWDC is worldwide developer conference, and a lot of people always assume that it's just software based, but you have developers who work on hardware as well. So I think that could be a little bit of a switcheroo that they're trying to do to maybe be a little bit more hardware focused, because like you said, outside of the new features that are supposed to come out in the new OSs, I'm personally thinking some of the features that are going to come out aren't going to be directly related to Apple Intelligence. I think because they're still figuring it out, they still want to release new features, and they don't necessarily want to probably upfront tie them to Apple Intelligence because they're still working on it. They're still trying to figure out how it works. I think they figure they can always, reverse engineer it, or, put in some things into the code, or they probably have some sort of roadmap of how to make the features that they do have work with Apple Intelligence in whatever format that looks like. So I'm thinking we're probably going to hear about a lot of features, but they aren't going to be Apple Intelligence related features. I think they'll probably try and slide it in and say, you could do this. I think they'll try and do like a loose connection to Apple Intelligence so it's not too far out of the mind. But I don't think they want a lot of focus on Apple Intelligence right now because it is a bit of a mess over there.
They're
trying to figure it out.
It's just all right.
Yeah.
It's just all right.
It's not Apple quality at this point. So I think the features that we're going to see aren't going to be, they're going to be new features. I just don't think they're going to be tied to Apple Intelligence.
Yeah. And then I was just going to say, again, I was saying I don't agree with how people, companies, how we have decided what AI is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping Apple goes against that because, again, the way I envisioned it in my mind, the way Apple kind of explained it was your phone is your personal assistant, not the cloud, not the internet, not this service that just wraps up and presents the internet to you in a digestible manner, right? That's what AI right now is doing with the addition of all the video editing, all the creative stuff. In addition to that, what most people use ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot for is almost like an assistant, right? It's like, I'm planning this party, do this thing, right? Or, I'm writing this book, give me some topics, or I need to whatever, right? They're querying, prompting, and getting a response.
Yeah.
I think Apple is still positioned to be like, all right, well, you can go to that. You can go to ChatGPT and whatever for that. But if you want like a real personal assistant that knows you and knows your habits and can better help you on a daily basis, as far as scheduling, as far as reminding, as far as messaging, as far as collaboration, we've already got your data. We just gonna keep it on your phone. Yeah. If you want to share the information with your laptop, with your iPad, with your MacBook, with your Macs, whatever, we'll provide the connection via that cloud compute thing. But the personal assistant is yours. It's not everybody's, and you're just shooting prompts out into the atmosphere to get a response. That's not what we want to do. Hopefully Apple stays true to that and they don't be like, we're going to do it like everybody else, but they got to do something. They got to say something.
Yeah. And the funny thing is with AI, it's become a catch-all phrase right now. And most people's view of AI is so limited. I've said this so many times before. It's so limited. It's rudimentary level thoughts of implementation of AI. Most people can't even conceptualize the types of benefits that AI can bring. They are so focused on personal assistance. They are so focused on creating video. They are the focus is so narrow. Sometimes I just have to laugh because the focus is so narrow of what they think AI is. And I really hope that Apple gets back to being the leader that they've always been and change that narrative of what people expect AI to be. It's not just your, like you said, you're prompting, you're querying, you're telling it to do something, and then it's spitting you out a result. That is, again, the most rudimentary functionality of AI, and people are missing out on the capacity and the capability of what we can actually do with this type of technology. And people get so focused on their narrow view that they don't allow their mind to even expand outside of that. So in order to keep up with public perception and public demand, people are actually coming down from on high down to a rudimentary level instead of elevating people who are at the lower level of this conceptually and bringing them up. And
they would do that if we wasn't so concerned with making money. They've got to make the money now. So whatever they can do to get
slap
as much
AI powered on it,
and anything they can do to get consumer buy-in, because we know we are not as a whole brought up to speed on the possibilities of for real artificial intelligence. We know what we've seen on movies, we know what we've seen on the internet, right? But like, for us to, as a society, understand, grasp, and accept artificial intelligence, like for real artificial, like artificial in
the like artificial intelligence that I know of, that I think about,
the robots thinking for themselves,
yeah.
The system thinking for itself, right? We got a long way to go as far as education to get everybody up on that. These companies can't wait that long. We need the money yesterday. We need it for fourth quarter last year. So whatever we got to do, like you said, slap AI on everything. If I want to shorten this paragraph, use AI. That ain't AI. But companies slapping stuff because they need buy-in, because they need people to spend money. So, look at this new pretty AI thing. Look at all it can do for you.
And a lot of times, honestly, it's not even AI. It's automations, it's workflows. It's not even what AI is. But I could talk about this forever. I digress. The other thing I wanted to mention, Mark Gurman's article in Bloomberg the other week about this naming convention. I was seeing people saying it's confirmed that Apple is doing this. And I was like, oh, snap, did I miss it? And I went to Google and I went to look things up to see, I even went to Apple Newsroom, which is surprisingly where I got the rest of the articles from that we're going to talk about in the lowdown that were pretty interesting. I went to Newsroom to say, I must have missed the press release or the announcement or something to this effect. Found big fat goose egg. And basically it's just saying that they are confirming what Mark Gurman said that he heard it was going to be. And I was like, you can't just go around and slapping confirmed on stuff. And now they've changed all of the icons from iOS 19 to iOS 26, which I don't understand either. If it's
you say where'd they do that at?
Pretty much everywhere. If you go and look
all on tech blogs and stuff.
Yeah, the tech blogs on social media, everywhere. News sites, everything. That's where I'm seeing they've changed it from iOS 19 to iOS 26. And that's the other thing. Why would it be 26, right? If the new iPhone is released in September
of 2025.
Right. And the new iOS is going to be announced probably Monday and released with the new iPhone. Why isn't it iOS 25? Then I went to do some research. I was like, maybe I missed that. Maybe there's a reason why they have to use 26 instead of 25. Didn't see nothing. And I was like, maybe in Mark Gurman's article, I missed it or nobody's talking about it. I went to click on the article. It's behind a paywall. It's behind them forcing you to accept their new third party, their cookie tracking, whatever. I was like, I'm not doing that. So I was like, somebody else has to have it. I didn't see it. I didn't see any type of explanation. And that was like really like freaking me out. Like, why? It would make more sense because it's WWDC 25. If they actually are doing this, why wouldn't it be iOS 25? And why is it iOS 26? That's
Well,
just what I kept asking myself. Why is it iOS 26?
the only thing I can think of, the only comparable would be cars. When they launch a new car in the fall, it's typically, let's say, the Chevy Mouse, right? For whatever, right? When they typically launch new cars to where they roll off the assembly line in the fall,
Mm-hmm.
but they typically call the 2020, let's say the Chevy Mouse comes out in the fall, they typically call it the 2026 Chevy Mouse because it's for the 2026 new year, the 2026 year. They just roll them out a little bit early to whatever they need to do. I don't know, get numbers, get statistics to see how people are buying them, whatever the case may be, right? The only other thing, well, I said one thing. The only other
Mm-hmm.
thing I can think about, and I lost it that fast. Hold on, it was something else. It was cars, and there's something else, another product that comes out, and movies, but not
Oh.
year. Think of movies, right?
Uh-huh.
What's the newest movie that came? Mission Impossible. Mission
Okay.
Impossible: The Final Reckoning, right?
Uh-huh.
Movie in theaters Friday.
Mm.
But if you go Thursday night, you can watch Mission Impossible: Final
Uh-huh.
Reckoning. So I'm thinking that they are announcing it, or if they go forward with calling this the iOS 2020, not iOS, iPhone 2026, and they call it iOS 2026 or whatever the case may be,
Mm.
then I can see it being because of those reasons, because they want to kind of see how it works, see how people accept it, see how people accept it, or whatever the case may be, but they're releasing in 2025. I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
right. I'm just saying these are the comparables.
I guess it just seems so weird. And I was like, I have to be missing something. I have to be
hmm
missing something because this is kind of nutty.
hmm
Because next year we'll have another release.
hmm
And they're announcing it in June, though. They're announcing it in June. It may not be released until September, but they're announcing it in June. So they already know it now, but
hmm
they're just
hmm
releasing it. But it'll still be another 4 months in the year before we get to, again, maybe it ain't supposed to make sense, but it
Well,
don't make sense to me.
right, but the only thing I can think of as far as it being confirmed is there. I'm assuming that somebody leaked information, like
Mm-hmm.
information that Apple has already set up, and
Mm-hmm.
somehow they got leaked. So they leaked the actual final names to
Mm.
some of this stuff. So maybe that's why they're confirming it, because
So
it's.
maybe it's going to be iOS 19 this year, and then maybe next year to be iOS 26.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. It's really strange. Anyway, last thing, we know that the keynote, which is what usually everybody tunes into, is on Monday.
hmm
Are you? Is there anything else you're planning to see or to watch or to jump into as far as the event itself?
Nope, nope. CarPlay, HomeKit. We know everything else is coming. iPhones, watches, all that stuff coming. I really don't care about that home thing. Even though the home pod, or what is that? What do you call it?
HomePad.
Home pad. I've got my phone. I've got a tablet. I've got a computer. You know, those are my screens, right? Not really interested in that, but again, I'm interested to see how Apple approaches or responds to or treats Apple Intelligence going forward.
Yeah, I need to do a little prep for myself. I need to go into the app and see what some of the sessions are, because
hmm
typically after they do the keynote on that Monday, they normally kind of do a deeper dive into
hmm
like different parts. And then
hmm
of course it's events throughout the week. So I haven't been in the developer app yet, but I need to go in and take a look and see what sessions I might want to attend,
hmm
because next week, well, actually starting what I think this Sunday is Atlanta Tech Week. So, and then it's Render,
hmm
this week as well. So I was like, I really need to like be proactive and try and like schedule out what I want to see and what I want to do and all that kind of stuff. So that's my kind of homework for myself, is to figure out with all this stuff buzzing around, what it is I actually want to see. And I probably should look at that to kind of, maybe that'll give us kind of an idea of what we can expect to see during the week. But I think the conference schedule, I mean, not the conference schedule, but the sessions are already live, and you can kind of go in and save and see what you want to see. But I definitely need to do that for myself sometime between today and Sunday. So I'll let you know if I see anything or if I get any fun sessions that may give us some idea of where Apple is going and what they're doing. So we'll see. Right. Let's go on into the next topic. So like I said, in my quest to confirm the naming convention change, I went to the Apple newsroom to see if there was a press release or something there. Again, I didn't find anything, but what I did find is a story about Emory Healthcare. And if you know, Emory is a huge university and pretty much a primary hospital in the metro Atlanta area. And particularly this Emory Hospital is Hillendale Hospital, and this is in a predominantly Black community. It's in Lithonia, Georgia, East Atlanta. Well, I won't say east, the east side. So it's the east side of Metro Atlanta, and they have done like this complete tech transformation where pretty much all Apple devices are fully integrated into the hospital. Okay. And if you've been to a hospital lately, or, you know, in the last few years, or in your doctor's office, it's very rare that you see a lot of Apple devices. You'll see Windows type tablets. You'll see Windows PCs. You don't really see, outside of people's personal iPhones, you know, you don't really see Apple really in the hospital ecosystem. No. But the fact that this hospital that is that serves predominantly Black people has now said, you know what? We are about to completely go full throttle on Apple. So all of their devices are Macs, iPhones, iPads, Apple Watches. All of these are integrated into the hospital. And what they're saying is it has improved clinical operations, efficiency, mobility, communication, and it's powered by Epic Healthcare apps. And it's just saying, the article is basically outlining how much the clinician side of things has improved, and even patient engagement with using the Apple ecosystem throughout the hospital. And I thought it was just something that was really, honestly, really surprising. Right. Because of the way that healthcare racism is really a thing, and how typically as Black folks or in Black areas, Black neighborhoods, Black communities, we don't usually get the best of the best when it comes to technology and innovation in our hospitals. And the fact that it's the first of its kind and it's completely using all Apple products, I thought that was pretty dope.
Yeah, and I thought it was dope for a different reason, right? Because not because of racism, but yes, also that. But because most hospitals have such legacy systems, databases, things like that, to where PCs, they don't have a choice to utilize a PC, because all of the systems, all of the data this is what it is. And for a hospital, you just can't switching stuff up, right? You know, like in my house, if I want to say, hey, we're ditching Apple tomorrow, we're going to Android. You know, all I got to do is go to Best Buy, buy a bunch of products, you know, give me about a couple weeks and everybody's up on Windows and Android, right? You can't do that with a hospital. You can't do that with
Right.
people's health care,
Their
HIPAA,
records.
all these things, to where most hospitals are kind of like, nah, we're just not going to touch it.
It
We're
ain't
not going to
broke.
upgrade.
We
Right.
not gonna fix it. We just gonna
Right.
let it be.
We're not going to upgrade nothing. It works. Shut up. Do your job. Right.
Right.
So for the fact that a hospital, that serves Black folks, like you mentioned, is now on the forefront of this new, thing, like you said, it's definitely interesting, that they've actually went that route.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that they got the buy-in. So Ravi Thandhani, he is the vice president for health affairs at Emory, and he's basically saying that it's not just technology that they're changing the culture behind it, and I can only see that as a benefit to patients. And what I think is, if they can prove and use all the analytics, all the data to show that, yes, this works. Yes, this improves patient outcomes, efficiency, makes people feel more comfortable. If they can prove this in a hospital that serves Black folks,
Right.
trust and believe
They're going to implement it
the
everywhere.
adoption is gonna go swiftly.
Right. And not just for the patients, for the nurses, for the
The
doctors,
clinicians, yeah.
because now when you go to the doctor, they've got to cart in this big old computer, or they've got it mounted on the wall, and it's got the arms, and the nurse comes in, she got to move it all around, and she's got to, we know that Macs are iPad, specifically iPads. Like, you can dock an iPad and now it becomes a computer. Or if you
Right.
need to move around with it, you can undock it and just clickety clack, tippity tap, right? Versus a Windows machine that you go in. I challenge anybody listening to this, the next time you go to your doctor's office, pay attention to the computers and how they move around and how they utilize technology. It looks old, it looks funky. And I'm pretty sure the nurses and the doctors and the practitioners, they like, good. That means we ain't got to mess with this old busted software, which may make it easier for them to get their work done, which means they'll be
Less stressed out.
less stressed out, which means less mistakes, because they
Yeah.
ain't, I got to go log into this old software and I got to restart the machine, that sort of thing.
Unplug it, wait a couple seconds, plug it back in,
Right,
pray
right.
it works. Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is really dope. And I can definitely see how this could definitely improve and make things faster, because especially when people go to the doctor, the hospital, it's already like, oh, I don't want to be here anyway. Anything to be efficient and effective at the same time. And we know, of course, we're Apple snobs. That's why we have the show. The way you can move around the ecosystem with different devices, I just think it's a win-win all around. And I think this is pretty cool, especially since a lot of people have iPhones. It's probably going to be a lot easier for them to get their patient information, to get updates and all sorts of other medically things, a lot simpler and easier and more compatible with their own personal devices that they have. So I think this is dope. And I could definitely see this going, widespread if it's successful. And it sounds like so far it has been, because we all know how Apple is about security and privacy. So we already have that kind of built in. So cool. And use case, Apple Vision Pro is not a very personal usage heavy kind of thing, but you think about this, you're in surgery, you're doing small little things, incisions. This Vision Pro thing they could find some really great use cases to use this in a hospital. So
surgeries.
yeah, innovation all abound. So I think it's dope. And I hope that it really, does something and makes life better for both patients and clinicians. So cool on that. I thought that was just super cool. All right. The last thing, we've been talking about Epic and Apple for, God, I don't even know how long at this point. But again, I saw this on the newsroom on Apple's website. In light of all the stuff that's happened with Apple and Epic, I think it's very smart and slightly petty that Apple is now, they basically did a report on what benefit the App Store has had on Apple consumers. And basically the highlight from this report is that over the last 5 years, Apple has saved over $9 billion as it relates to fraud. So this means transactions. This means malicious apps coming through the App Store being declined, being blocked, fake customers, all of the things that people do to try and navigate around and basically try and steal people's stuff just digitally in this space. And I think it's very smart of them to have this report and have it already out there at the onset of using these, being required to use these third-party links for purchases.
And even side loading apps using alternative app stores, because the EU is still trying to get Apple to do that as well.
Yeah. So I think that this app, not this app, but this report, it's obviously strategic on how they're doing this and why they're doing this. But I think aside from that, it's really important to acknowledge why they run the App Store the way they run it and the benefits that come out of that. They're saying they've protected users by preventing over 2 billion in fraudulent transactions in 2024 alone. So, it's one of those things, almost a third of the savings over the last 5 years have been done in 1 year. And I just think it's very smart. It's very advantageous to them. And so now they have kind of like a baseline. So in the next couple years, when we start to see the ripple effects of using this third party purchase sites, they'll have something to compare it to and say, see, this is why we did what we did and why. So I just think it's really smart that they got it and they have it quantitatively, because when you have numbers to back things, it's hard to argue with that.
People gonna argue anyway. I don't think that was Apple's issue. I think Apple's issue is like, hey, can't say we didn't tell you so. You click the third party link and go to a third party website and do the purchase there. That site, that app, that service is now responsible because what people are going to do is they're going to click the third party app, go make the purchase, something happens, and they're going to be calling Apple, sending messages to Apple support, calling Apple Care. It's like, I purchased this app or I got this subscription
on my iPhone
and I don't understand why. And Apple's going to have to figure out the best way to say, well, you did it outside the Apple ecosystem. If you would have done it inside the Apple ecosystem, this is why. And they can point to this report now. I'm not saying the customer service rep is going to be like, hey, go to the Apple newsroom and click on this link to a customer who's complaining that something's wrong with their transaction. But Apple can just say, hey, I don't know what to tell you. You purchased it outside the Apple ecosystem. You're going to have to call whomever. Right.
You got to track that down yourself. And I think what it is, I wouldn't be surprised if Apple hasn't already established a whole kind of like response team that anytime somebody calls into customer support about this type of issue, if they already don't have a set of people dedicated to handle this, because they know they're going to start rolling in and it's going to impact people with issues that actually Apple can do something about. So I think there's probably delineated.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say was, I don't even think it's a team. So I'll give you your real world example, right? My job, right? Part of my job is issuing phones to people, mobile device management, right? What we tell people is we are responsible for our company's data on your phone. If you're having problems with anything else, we can't support it, right? But we say that, but it never stops anybody for like a specific, like specifically, they'll say, hey, I can't reset my phone because I don't remember my Apple ID password. When I hear that, it's automatically, we only support our company's services, sites, apps. Anything else, you're going to have to go to that company, and then I automatically put in a link that says applesupport.com or iforgot.apple.com to let those people go to Apple.
Because we can't reset that password for you.
We can't reset it. We can't unlock it. We can't. Apple is doing their job.
Yeah.
Which is why we can't get into it. Only you can get into it. Yeah. And we can't.
That's how it's supposed to be.
So all that to say is I don't even think Apple's going to have all this customer support stuff set up. They're going to have a canned response that all their customer support people are going to say is, we do not support any issues with purchases, transactions made outside of the Apple Store, the App Store. And that's going to be it. That's it.
But what about this, sir? And they just got to keep.
We do not support. I do this all day long. I'm telling you, we do not support this because you decided to do that.
Right. And we told you not to.
And we told you not to. And we told you what was going to happen when you do it.
Yep. And you just didn't listen because you want to do what you wanted to do. So a quick rundown, a couple of things by the numbers. In 2024, Apple terminated more than 146,000 developer accounts over fraud concerns and rejected an additional 139,000 developer enrollments, preventing bad actors from submitting their apps to the App Store in the first place. So 446,000 were terminated. 139,000 weren't even allowed in. They were prevented from the beginning. Also, Apple rejected over 711 million customer account creations and deactivated nearly 129 million customer accounts. This is all in 2024. And I say that to say, this is on the front end of protecting you. And if you see 711 million customer account creations, if it has that many that people were creating, just imagine what that looks like outside of Apple with systems that may not even be as robust. So they're basically saying, we tried to told you, we tried to warn you that this is what we did just in 2024 alone. Be prepared for this to escalate outside of our, geofence kind of safety net, and be prepared for what's to come. So interesting things.
Can't say we didn't tell you so.
Cannot say we did not tell you. And again, we'll have the link in there because it does a great rundown of the things that are really kind of pertinent and key. And we'll just say here on this show, as you decide on the app purchases that you're going to make, just be mindful of the links that you click on. We've talked about this before. Now it's going to be even easier because you're already going to be in an app that you're using, especially if your kids do games. They don't care. They see, oh, I can watch this video or I can click this link and it'll give me 5 extra coins to buy this. I want the 5 coins, so I'm just going to click on this and do whatever it tells me because I want the 5 free coins or whatever the case may be and how you use this. So just be mindful of the way you're purchasing things outside of Apple if you choose to go that route. Just be mindful.
Yep, exactly. It's just like we may be making a boogeyman, making a big, fear factor type thing.
Yeah.
And it may not be that bad. You may never have a problem with clicking a third party link inside of an app. that
Mm-hmm.
was bought or downloaded via the Apple App Store. You may never have a problem. Like Nica said, just know if and when you do, you can't come to Apple to ask for their help. So just like, I don't want to repeat it, but just be mindful. I don't know.
Just be mindful. That's all we can say. We be safe out in these digital streets because it is a war out there. That is going to wrap it up for the lowdown. Let's head on over to Second String where we talk all other tech. I didn't realize that this was a thing, but apparently it is a thing. The new Nintendo Switch launched today, the day we're recording Thursday, but people were similar to what you were talking about with the iOS 25, iOS 26. People were in line last night at GameStops, at Best Buys, at all of the places picking up their pre-orders. So for the people who pre-ordered, you can go in there. And so it's not just picking these devices up. This is giving, 2010, getting new Apple devices, standing outside. For me, it was the AT&T store or standing outside the Apple store, trying to be the first one in line to get the new devices. People are now back to that type of, I guess, nostalgia is the only way I can think about it, of camping outside, trying to be the first to get it, wrapping around buildings. So much so that the link that the in the article that we'll talk about, they basically sent out a reporter to live article, live blog. That's the word I want to use. The experience that people were having in New York on game night launch. And so they were doing body paints and giveaways and appearances and all these, it was a whole thing. It was a whole event. I had no clue that this was what it was about. I have a Switch and I only bought it to play Mario Kart during the pandemic, but the kids, the adults, the fans, they are outside everywhere, all over the world, trying to get their hands on this device.
Right. Because it's been so long since the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. And like you mentioned, during the pandemic, they exploded in popularity to where I bought 2 for my kids for during the pandemic to give them something else to do, right? Other than get on their phones or whatever the case may be. I had to search around for a while. It took me about a couple weeks to finally get some that were retail, because I'm not paying over. You can forget that, right? So with the gap between the Switch, the regular Switch,
I think it was like 8 years, right?
Right. And the fact that Nintendo has been talking about this device for the past 2 years, maybe a Switch 2. So I think people are FOMO, want to be in the building when it happens, things of that nature, which is why this launch is so popular, because of those 2 reasons, right? But it ain't without its issues. Oh, side note, completely off tangent.
Okay.
I did not realize that The Verge is now put their stuff behind a paywall, to where we click on this link, I can scroll down for a little bit and I get hit with a paywall. And I had to go over to Apple News, since I pay for the News Plus, to where I can read the whole article without being hit on a paywall. So that's just a side note.
This is interesting. When I first clicked on the link, I was able to read the whole article without the paywall.
It's
That's
got me.
weird.
I cannot go any further without subscribing to The Verge. Now, whether
that's wild.
Yeah, buddy.
Because I'm looking at the link that I originally clicked, and I'm looking at the whole thing.
So
they was like, maybe let's get too much traffic. They was like, nope, we got to monetize this.
I think media, print media, and I mean, even though it's digital, Verge is a news publication, and people don't read news like that no more. People go on TikTok, they go on Instagram, they go on Facebook, they go on X. Whatever they can get from there is whatever they can get from there. Nobody's going to actually websites anymore. Either that or AI, right? They're pulling all the information down from AI. I ain't got to go click on the link. If I can scrape the Verge and get it via a prompt, right? I ain't even got to go to the website, right? So anyway, neither here
Yeah.
nor there. The Switch release isn't without its own problems, right? Because there's two problems that I'm starting to see that's been repeated, to where people are getting their Switch 2s and they're damaged because of the packaging or some sort of punctures. I don't
Oh, I
know if
saw
it,
that with I think it was GameStop. They
right.
put some sort of receipt or something and they
Mhm.
tacked it to the beginning of the box, and it's piercing through
The
all of
box.
that and hitting the screen.
Yeah. So that's
I'd
one
be
thing.
pissed.
Right. So that's one thing. And then the second thing that I want people to know is I saw this story and I had to actually Google it to be sure.
Hmm.
So what I put in Google was, do I own the Switch 2? And this is the response. While you might physically own a Switch 2, Nintendo's updated user agreement suggests that you don't technically own the right to play on it without their permission. Can you imagine
The
getting something,
what?
buying something,
You paid your
paying
money
for it,
for it?
got the receipt, and
The money out your account?
come to find out if you don't follow their specific rules and guidelines, they can stop you from actually playing the thing. I don't know how y'all feel about that. I'm not getting a Switch 2. You know, the Switches that I got will suffice. All the
Yeah.
games will play them.
I can play Mario Kart still, and
I
that's what I be
wonder how
playing.
people feel about the fact that they've got a Switch 2 and Nintendo could be like, hey, you
You shutting
bought
it
it,
down.
but you can't access nothing on it. That would be that would drive me crazy. So I'm interested to see how people think about that.
And I think because, speaking of Google, I just put in the prompt, what's new with the Nintendo Switch 2? Because I was like, what's all the chatter about? And I think what the change around that license agreements update is because they've made it's a more social device now. And what that
Okay.
means is it includes this new feature called game chat and allows voice and video chats with friends. And this thing now has a built-in microphone. A lot of children
Mm-hmm.
own these devices.
Sure.
So I'm thinking maybe I'm going to, even though this is a business, we are capitalist society, we know they're all about money. If there is some sort of altruistic or
Nope.
think about the children type thing to
Nope.
say that we're putting that in there to protect children from predators with these game chat. And the other feature is called Game Share, which you can share a single copy of the game with others who have their own Switch or Switch 2. So basically the social aspects of this is the only way I can kind of think about that. But then again, I heard your notes, and the other side of my brain is they are really taking away the option of owning media, especially, everything you use now, it's downloaded from somewhere to somewhere. You don't actually have the physical, back in the day we had the
Right.
game cards. You had to blow
Right.
them off, to
Right.
keep going. You had these stack of CDs. Now everything is, you can download it from the internet on device. You don't have a physical copy. So now I'm wondering, got my tinfoil hat on. Are they now trying to loan you your own device?
Well, it's I
Since
guess
it is physical media,
well,
I
I'm
mean, it's
looking.
a physical product, but we can shut it down. So it's basically a brick device if they choose to shut it down, right?
It's like you're leasing a vehicle. You're leasing a Nintendo Switch. The money
Even though you paid up front for it.
the money you put down to get your lease for your car, that is just the money that you put down for that period, that 2, 3 to 4, whatever lease thing is. Think of the Nintendo Switch. You are leasing the hardware because what you really want to do
Is
is
the
play the
software.
software. You want to play the games. You want to be a part of the community, all the stuff that you mentioned. What Nintendo was saying is the hardware isn't the beauty isn't the hardware.
In the hardware, it's the
beauty
software.
is in the intellectual property
That's
that
the money
Nintendo
maker.
has. Mario, all the things.
Zelda.
Everything Nintendo was like, yo, this is our property. This is our stuff. We're trying to keep it. If you want to be a part of the experience, you have to
Pay a
lease
fee.
this device and we'll let you utilize our intellectual property. It'll be interesting to see if that works and if more companies start to do that.
Setting a precedent for a business model. Interesting. And speaking of that, the storage capability has gone up to 256 gigs because before, like I mentioned, we had, our old big cartridges and they went down to cards. Now it's on a teeny tiny SD card that you can put your games on. So I assume if they shut it down where you can't, I don't know how this works. If you can't download games to the device, if you have them saved on your little SD card, I would assume you could probably still play it. No?
Nope. On Nintendo, listen, on Nintendo Switch 2, some, maybe not all, some game cards that you mentioned to where if I buy it, if I spend $50 to buy this game, normally if I opt, I can get a physical copy of it on this tiny SD card. Some game cards will act as keys to download the full game instead of containing the entire game.
So you don't even own the game when you buy the physical copy of it.
You buy You buy the hardware to get the key to then access or pull down all the stuff that Nintendo says you can now have because you've leased the hardware and you have a key.
Because the thumb drive, the thumb drive, the little SD card with the game doesn't have the full game.
Nope.
It's like you said, it's the key, it's the ignition. You stick it and you turn it on. Then you get the full thing.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, good luck out there. I'm keeping my old Switch. I knew I wasn't going to buy this new one anyway because my old one works just fine and I rarely use it anyway. So
the Switch is dope because the Switch 2 is dope because it solves a lot of problems the first Switch didn't have. Okay. Like you said, the microphone, the Bluetooth connectivity, because before with an original Switch, you couldn't Bluetooth headphones to it. You had to jack in. Now you can do all the Bluetooth stuff. Now you can do the microphone, like you mentioned. So now you can chat with your friends while you're playing all the stuff. So, and then the screen is better. And then with the old Switch, you had to slide the Joy-Cons out of the thing. Now they've magnetized to where they just kind of clip in,
So that is cool.
They've made everything better, but they've also,
but it's a cost.
Right. But they've tied you into,
yeah,
I just don't own, I can't buy a game. I can't buy the system and then own a game. I just can't do that anymore with this. Some of them you may be able to own the game, but I'm pretty sure most of these game developers is like, all right, well, we about to get our money too. If Nintendo is,
if they doing it, we doing it too.
Right. So everything is a subscription. So the Nintendo the Nintendo Switch 2 may be the first example of you not really owning the equipment that you actually bought. And we shall see how that works.
Or if people are just so excited to have this new device that they'll agree to anything because they want to play this new thing.
And most people will. But again, similar to the previous story, right? We sound like boogeyman, right? And we're trying to doomsday. It's like, don't buy the Switch 2 because you don't own it. Most people will buy it. Yeah. Most people will download the keys
and not have any problems
But I can guarantee you we will be reporting on stories about some big blow up because something happened between Nintendo Switch and a player, Nintendo Switch and a whatever, and it's become this big story. I can guarantee you. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned because it could be either great. You could have the golden ticket or you could have a dud. All right. Let's head on over to For the Culture where we talk about what's going on around us. And lately, because again, everything has just been so horrible, I wanted to talk about something happy. And I've seen this I I have a TikTok, but I don't really use a TikTok. So it's kind of flowed over to some of the other social media platforms that I use. But we're going to talk a little perpetuating Black Boy Joy today. So there's this group of 10 friends out of New York. They are all students at Hunter College, and they just try new things together. I think the first thing they did was they went as a group to Dunkin' Donuts to try matcha. And they was like, hey, let's do this. So they had no idea that them just being friends going to try this matcha would go viral. Apparently, it was initially a 19-second video. And it was watched by more than 15 million people. And so now they're just friends. They're young, college students, teens, early 20s. And they go and do stuff together. And they have fun. So they've gone to Pilates classes. They've gone to cooking classes. They went to get like their nails done. And, I've seen some of the videos, and it's just the most wholesome, sweetest thing that these tall, normally while people assume as thugs or, scary people, they have these huge bright smiles on their face, and they are just having a good time together, experiencing things as all teen 20 something should be able to. And it's just it's so endearing, and it's so sweet, and I just wanted to highlight them. They call themselves now the OSB, which stands for One Strong Brotherhood, and they posted more than 20 videos, and all of them have gone viral. And I just think it's so refreshing to see these kids, these young men go out and just be able to be free and enjoy things, and not really care about, what people think. To me, it's kind of like the antithesis of kind of like this red pill, incel movement, with these kids just going out and having a good time and, just being happy. And I thought it was so great.
So I was thinking about this today, but totally unrelated to this story, but it fits my narrative about social media, right? Content creators. We know them, we see them, we follow them, whatever, right? What is starting to turn sour, what's starting to turn me sour, and I'm pretty sure there are other people that think this way too, is people themselves consider themselves, people on social media who are trying to do this are just content creators. So when you go to their pages, when you go to their platforms, it's just content creation for the sake of content
highly
creation.
Curated stuff.
Not even that. Just content creation for the sake of content creation, right? What these kids are doing, which is what I think more people need to do, is niche down to something specific, to where you're not just creating content just to get views and because you need views in order to get ad deals and brand deals. But a brand can come to you and be like, oh, we see, for instance, I'll use us for example, we see y'all talk about tech. So a tech brand can come to us and be like, oh, we love what you're doing. Let's figure out how to partnership, ads, or whatever. But a lot of these content creators, they're just content creators. One day they could be talking about the kids, and these are not family creators, because there's a family
talk,
whatever, right? It's not even that. One day they're talking about their car problems. The next day they're talking about whatever, and it's just like, all right, are you a lifestyle content creator? No, they're not, because then they'll be on there talking about yelling at their baby daddy, or yelling at whatever, or right, or they get divorced, right? So it's just like all over the place. But the reason why they're doing it is because somebody told them, they went to a class.
They're throwing a hook out there. They're trying to fish,
or they're just throwing stuff. Quality, quantity over quality, right? What these kids are doing, which is what I wish more people do, and I'm starting to gravitate towards people who do this, is there's a central theme. For these kids, the central theme is a bunch of black boys are trying new things. So every video you see, or the videos that garner the most attention, are these Black boys trying new things, whether it be Pilates, like you mentioned, matcha tea from Dunkin' Donuts, sipping paint, whatever the case may be, right? That is like, okay, I get it. Now I can follow along what's going on. And I've seen videos, like there's another one, right? These two guys, these two white guys, they routinely, what do you call it in the morning when you go back and forth from work to home? What do you commute? I couldn't even think of the word. These guys, they live in Seattle, and they commute on this particular highway from Seattle to another state. I mean, not another city. So there must be, like, I can't remember what it is. But anyway, what they're doing is they're in this commute for at least an hour and a half. So what they've decided to do is judge people on their driving. So while they're driving down the highway, one guy is driving, the other guy is recording people doing crazy things on the highway. Somebody is reading. They've seen videos of people playing Candy Crush. They even seen this one dude. He was in a Tesla, sleep, while the Tesla was driving down the road. And all they do,
what you're not supposed to do.
And so they're judging people based on their driving, if they cut people off, if they're driving too. So they've made this whole platform just off of these two dudes and documenting their daily commute on this particular highway from this city to this city. That's the type of stuff that I'm starting to get into now, because I see the theme. It's not just me one day talking about Black struggle and Black empowerment, and then the very next video, me and my wife are in an argument, right? That ain't, that's disjointed, right? But I see a lot of people are starting to do this, and that is the content that is starting to go viral. And in addition to that, that stops or prohibits burnout from these social media people who feel like they just got to feed the machine.
They have to constantly be producing.
I ain't got no content for today.
Gotta make some up.
Video of me walking outside. That's stupid. Yeah. I don't want to see you walking outside, but these content creators feel like I need 2 and 3 and 4 videos a day in order to get where I want to get or maintain where I've got. People say, oh, I'm trying to get to 2,000 followers. I'm trying to get to 1 million followers. Well, the same things you had to do to get to 1 million followers is the same things you got to do to keep 1 million followers. And you was grinding. You was grinding every single day. Now you up there. Now people are like, hey man, I still need the videos.
What you got for me what have you done for me lately?
Right. There's another, when you water down your brand with this random stuff because you need content, and you get burned out because it's like, oh, I gotta produce every single day versus if you are on a routine, for instance, everyday commute, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7:38, I'm doing content. And then you go do your thing, go to work, whatever, the commute back from 5 to 7. Those are the 2 times you're doing content. Outside of that, you can go spend time with your family. You can go do whatever the case may be. If you are just a content creator for the sake of content creation, every day. And people expect that because that's what you give them. So all around the world to say, I appreciate what these kids are doing, not just because in addition to them being Black Boy Joy, they are actually doing something that can potentially be viral, and it's longevity, because they ain't got to do this every single day. Maybe once every other week, they can try something new.
Yeah, they only have 20 videos.
You ain't got to work that hard. If you have niched down to a theme and it's something that you enjoy and it's something that you already do. Like I said, if you're already commuting and you decide I want to start a page on my commute, all you got to do is do content based around your commute. You ain't got to tell me about your kids. You ain't got to tell me about your job. You ain't got to tell me about all your life struggles. All you got to do is show me what you're doing on your commute. Right. And I think that'll go a long way as far as social media. Again, I'm not a social media expert. I'm just telling you the stuff I like to follow.
Right. And you are a real person. So this is what me as a consumer are looking for. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I seen not to belay the point, to belay the topic, but I saw content where this black boy, this black guy, he this baby duck followed him home, and he's
Oh.
reluctant. He's reluctant because he's just, he's a black boy. What I'm supposed to do with a duck, right? And it went from the duck following him home to where now that's his homie, and he takes him to the water, puts him in the lake. The duck swims around and does his thing. He puts his hand in the water, taps the water. The duck comes right back. He puts him in his hand and takes him home. So
Oh, that's his pet.
his whole
Oh,
platform is his
it's about that
interactions with his
duck.
duck. I don't know nothing about his kids. I don't know nothing about his social media strategy.
Just
I don't
him
know
and this
nothing.
duck.
I don't know nothing about no master class. I don't know nothing about no coaching. All the trappings that regular social media people get into. He ain't got no Patreon. Now he may evolve into some of this stuff, but the content is central around this theme. And I think people will start to gravitate towards that more if you make that a part of your strategy.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have to go and find out about the duck. That sounds so cute. All right, that's gonna wrap up for the culture. Let's head on in to the hookup for our tech tip of the week.
Well, both of these are not tech tips. Well, the second one may be, but they're quick. But I want to do both of them. Number one,
Okay.
I am an Indiana Pacers fan, so my hookup for this week is make sure you watch the NBA Finals. As you can see, I've got my Pacers hat, I've got my Pacers gear. So, as a Indiana native and a Pacers fan, my hookup is you need to go watch some NBA Finals this weekend, the next weekend on until the Pacers finally win the championship. Fingers crossed, right? So that's number one. Number two is we've been talking a lot about AI. We kind of brushed on it or touched on it earlier in the show. And a good series that I've recently watched, and it delves on the subject of AI, but not just AI. You think of artificial intelligence. This series on Netflix is called Pantheon. It's an animated series. It's not an anime. There's a difference between anime and an animation, right? You think of animation, you think of Disney, Pixar, right? But you think of anime as in like Japanese culture with the, all the themes and anyway, neither here nor there. This series on Netflix is called Pantheon. It's a new, refreshing, different take on AI. Like I mentioned, we only think of artificial intelligence, a robot thinking for itself, right? This story introduces uploaded AI. What happens if we as people decide to go digital? Take our brains, our consciousness, and upload it to the cloud. So it kind of talks about the pros and the cons, the wins and the losses, and this central character, this is a little girl, she's trying to figure out what happened to her father, and she's trying to figure out how she can help him, right? And it's all related to artificial, I think they call it, there's artificial intelligence AI, there's UI, which is uploaded intelligence, and then there is CI, computer intelligence. I don't know, I couldn't figure out that last one, but all that to say, the morality, the ethics, the benefits, a lot of people believe in this story. I'm not going to give too much of it. They believe that all of our humanly problems will be solved if we all upload to the cloud. As you can imagine, we still humans, it's still humanity. That ain't the case. So it's an interesting story. Again, it's an animated series. So if you ain't with cartoons, then you might as well just rule yourself out. But if you're interested in AI and a different take on it, definitely watch Pantheon on Netflix. It's 18 episodes, 24 minutes apiece. You can burn through that in a weekend.
Nice. I'm going to check that out. That sounds very interesting. All right. That is our show for this week. Brother Tech, where can the people find you?
Sure, you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And you can find me everywhere at Tech Savvy Diva. Also, you can find me tomorrow on DTNS. And if you are in the Atlanta area next week, I will be out and about for Atlanta Tech Week and for the Render ATL Tech Conference. So if you're out there, say what's up. Because we will be out there in these tech streets over the next week. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. And we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.